Hi everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Sorry. I hope you guys are enjoying your time with your family and just making the most out of it. It doesn't have to be torturous and all that. Anyway, so I have put up I looked up the birth chart to Leticia's back. And when I look at the birth chart, especially for like crime cases like this, the ones that really interest me the most and usually tell you the most are the sorry guys, my throat is clogged up. It's not corona, it is just I get nervous and I get dry throat, so whatever. So I wanted to read to you some of the interesting cosmetic points that are on her chart. Not everybody has them, and that is why it's interesting to look on a person's chart in a case like this or with stuff like this involved and, see what it says. So, okay. I'm going to read to you the ones that I found interesting. Alright? The asteroid Pallas, and I will mispronounce some of these, so I'm just going to forewarn you. I know how to read and write and spell and all of that, so just so you know, I'm good. Okay, so I'm doing Leticia stocks, some of the points, the interesting points on her birth chart. Just making sure I got that point through. Okay. I felt like something was behind me, but I'm probably just seeing stuff. Okay, anyways. So, the asteroid Pallas, short for Pallas Athena, was found in 1802, the second of the four major asteroids to be discovered. The four major asteroids, Eris, Pallas, Juno, and Vesta, were discovered within a few years of each other at the beginning of the 19th century, and named for the female goddesses in the Roman pantheon. Their discovery has been synchronized with the rise of the women's movement in the West. These four asteroids seem to symbolize four different facets of the feminine and represent a fresh way of regarding the feminine principle in astrology, going beyond the relatively simple categories of wife and mother as represented by Venus and the moon. Pallas represents the wisdom of the female spirit, as the mythology of Pallas and Athena would indicate. Born from the head of Zeus and symbolized by the owl and the snake, Pallas Athena was a powerful symbol for independence and wisdom in the ancient mythology. She did not ally herself with any man, rather was a strong warrior-like figure who aided men of goodwill and whose advice was prized. I done lost my place now. Hang on. Okay, prized for its intelligence. The astrology of the asteroid Pallas indicates such a feminine spirit of independence and cool mental judgment in either a man or a woman's chart. Pallas represents a creative use of the mental facility in combination with ageless wisdom, also involved with the arts, especially the plastic arts, such as sculpture and pottery, and the medicinal remedies. Its position by house and sign indicates where in one's life the divine spark of the creative intelligence and higher wisdom may spring forth. Lord, I need to talk right. The 8th house symbolizes issues with death and rebirth, sexuality, and transformation. As this house follows the house of relationship, it refers to the fruits of a relationship, and these include the power to change based on new understandings made possible when one is no longer acting solely as an individual. Planets in this house are difficult to interpret and may refer to know how sexuality is manifested or the lessons you need to learn in order to grow and change. Well, our 8th house is our house of death, which could symbolize our death or the death of someone else, Okay, so we're going to go on to the next one. I've got to get a drink. Sorry, guys. Forgive me. Okay. Juno. And so, the asteroid Juno was found in 1805 and was the third of the 4 major asteroids to be discovered. These 4 asteroids, which came on the scene just as the 19th century began, represents different aspects of the feminine spirit in mythology. Juno, or the Greek Hera, was wife and consort to Jupiter, and therefore the astrology of Juno represents the parenting energy, of the partnering energy of the intimate relationship. There's also the territory of Venus and the Moon. But where Juno seems to differ is in representing the partnership's energy in a new light, as in confronting the more modern issues of where the boundaries are with another person, how much sharing is appropriate versus holding back, as well as how to deal with bitterness and jealousy or projected authority and control that is thrown onto another person. Juno also stands for intimacy needs in general. When Juno is prominent in a natal chart, all these types of issues are important to the individual. And if Juno is aspected by another planet, these issues may be colored by the energy of that planet. Juno's position by house and sign is an indication of the area in which these life lessons will be most important. Okay? And it's in her first house, which is the acting self, the personality, as it is to others. Like the mask that you have on in public, like what people think you are versus what you really are, kind of thing. So they affect how your personality is. The characteristics or keynote of your personality as you express yourself to others. So that's interesting. The Vesta is in the first house as well. She's got a lot of cosmic points in her first house and her 8th house too. So, yeah. The asteroid Vesta was the last of the 4 major asteroids to be discovered in 1807. The mythology of the Vesta is as followed. One of the sisters of Jupiter and Juno, Vesta chose to remain a virgin and not marry. She was the goddess of the hearth fire, which was the utmost importance in ancient times, okay? Hospitality and the basic vitality of the home or city-state, and her astrology symbol is the flame. It is interesting to note that Vesta is the brightest of the 4 asteroids, okay? Oh my goodness. It's the brightest of the 4 asteroids. Their service might even, I didn't skip a lot, y'all. Her symbolism also suggests the Vestal Virgin temple priestesses of the ancient Greek world and their commitment to no man, but rather to their own inner flame and of service to the goddess, okay? Their service might even be of a sexual nature, but they remain untouched by any sexual intimacy with another person. In accordance with this mythology, the asteroid Vesta is therefore involved with the signs Virgo and Scorpio. In the astrology of Vesta in an individual's chart, these issues of sexualities and completeness unto oneself are predominant. Possibly associations are the women or men who choose not to mate. But just as a nun or a monk takes on a higher purpose than normal family life. Vesta may also bring up issues of sexuality and of who is ultimately served in the process, the self or the other. Okay. When Vesta is prominent in the chart, there may be issues with purity, singleness, and sexuality, even through abstinence or by involving oneself with multiple partners, yet having no relationship. The placement of Vesta by house and sign indicate the area of life where these types of issues may manifest. And it's her first house. Again, the mask that she wears, right? Or the acting self. So the next one is Lilith. I know a lot of you probably know Lilith. Lilith in her 8th house, which is her house of death again. That's 2 in her death and 2 in her first. So that's interesting. Being born with the black moon Lilith represents a lunar orbit where it lies farthest from the earth. This mystical astrological point cycles once around the chart every 9 years, okay? And it is quite different from the asteroid named Lilith, having a much faster cycle of about 4 years. And also differs from the hypothetical dark moon, second satellite of the Earth. Studied since the mid-19th century, but never determined astronomically. Presumably, there are other astrological factors which also share the same Lilith archetype. The Black Moon Lilith has been the most typically used in modern Western astrology. Lilith represents an important piece of the feminine that has been lost or even shunned in modern society. She is worshipped in ancient Babylonia as the handmaiden of Inanna, and also viewed as distrust as the archetype of wild and uncontrolled sexuality. She is identified in Hebrew mythology as the first and rejected wife of Adam, who found her too argumentative and too insistent on having an equal footing with his male ascendancy. She was thus come to represent the principle of equality between the sexes, but being also associated with the raw sexual power and its spiritual use in the Tantra practice. She is also fitting archetype in the dark unknown part of ourselves that represent our unchanged sexuality and the female portion of either a man's or a woman's basic nature. Her portion, or her archetype, also includes the rage of being repressed and excluded from everyday life. Like Chiron, Lilith represents the potentially walled-off world of dark, instinctual urges that come from deep inside ourselves and lead us toward transcendence. Y'all, please don't think I can't, because I just get nervous when I'm reading it to other people. That's all. Don't worry. Transcendence. Okay, so I then lost the place now. When her influence is developed and explored through spiritual practice, she becomes a powerful ally for healing and regaining wholeness. Where she is found in your chart, either by aspect or by house position, she urges us to explore the dark unknown and instinctual part of the feminine sexuality and to embrace the healing power of acknowledging and honoring this influence. The 8th house symbolizes issues with death, rebirth, sexuality, and transformation. So it's, your relationship as well. Pholus is in the 9th house, and it was discovered on January 9th, 1992. And termed a centaur, the second of a class of small objects with eccentric orbits beyond the path of Saturn, of which Chiron was the first in astronomy, as well as in Greek mythology. Pholus is red in color and has an orbital period of 92 years. Just as the orbit of Chiron links Saturn and Uranus, The orbit of Pholus links Saturn and Neptune, and the mythology of Pholus partakes of some of the same elements as Chiron. Pholus was also a centaur, one of those mythical half-man, half-horse creatures that may perhaps signify the instinctual level that is still embodied in the modern man and woman. He is the keeper of the centaur's ancient and holy cask of wine, presumably red wine. Like Chiron, Pholus suffered a fatal wounding from the poison arrows of Hercules, after fracas in which the wine he was entrusted with was inadvertently opened to please Hercules. Pholus sacrificed himself for the greater good, a Neptunian theme, and that symbolism may come up in charts. There is also a motif of intoxication, which might be expected from the link between Saturn, or practical reality, and Neptune representing numinous, out-of-this-world experience. This link is a problematic one, of course. The Neptunian theme also refers to the use of our inner journey. Since the realm of the outer planet is paradoxically found within the human psyche, as well as the far reaches of the outer space, another theme that Pholus might represent is the sacrifice of this earthly world for necessity for the spiritual possibility of the beyond, reflecting the paradoxical contrast between this world and the impractical nature of the divine. When strongly placed, Pholus symbolizes the difficult stretch between these worlds. His position by house and sign and by planetary connection is likely to indicate where we have been wounded and where we struggle with our addictions, which are one way of masking over the wound until we are ready to delve into and begin resolving the contradictions of the inner world. The ninth house represents our intuition and study of religion and philosophy and higher learning. In addition, it represents travel to other countries and legal matters. This house is interpreted similarly as the ninth house of Sagittarius and represents the expansion of horizons, mental, physical, and spiritual. Planets in the house may symbolize your philosophical pursuits and possibilities for travel. Okay, so Nessus in the first house, and it was discovered in 1993 on the 26th of April. Named after the prominent centaur from Greek mythology, it is the third in the astronomical class Centaur, referring to several of these small objects with eccentric orbits found around the orbit of Saturn. Nessus was a orbital period of 122 and a half years, just as the orbit of Chiron like Saturn and Uranus, and the Pholus like Saturn and Neptune. The orbit of Nessus like Saturn and Pluto. The mythology of Nessus partakes of some of the same elements of the other stories, including painful death. Hercules was evolved again when Nessus was ferrying Hercules' bride Dianaria across a river. He tried to rape her, and so Hercules shot him through the heart with a poisoned arrow. Although dying, Nessus wreaked revenge on Hercules by giving some of the poison mixed with his blood and semen to Dianaria, with the instruction that she should give it to her husband if she ever suspected him to be unfaithful, and that it would keep him honest. She did, and she was told, but instead Hercules died in great pain. The element of revenge and painful transformation are therefore part of the planetoid's astrological symbolism. When strongly placed, Nessus symbolizes the difficult transition between decisions and responsibility that may lead to death or violent change. An element of revenge may be present. This position by house and sign and by planetary connection is likely to indicate that we may need to understand more of our dark side and where old wounds can come up to healing and renewal. The first house symbolizes, her mask. This one's, I don't know if this one's, maybe. I don't think I read this far. Okay. Like the others of the astronomical category called centaurs, which are of war, that's 3 asteroids of war. Wow. Was discovered in the 1990s. On February 15th, 1997, beyond Saturn and named for the consort in Chiron. The discovery chart of Chariklo, timed at 2:51 a.m. from Ket Peak Observatory near Tucson, forms a beautiful and remarkable six-pointed star, with Chariklo herself a part of the configuration. Together with the Moon and Mars, Pluto, Saturn, and a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in early Aquarius. Y'all, she killed Ganon in Aquarius. Oh my God. See, I told you, this thing, like, your charts, your birth natal charts, what? It even predicted when. Oh my God. Whew. All within a degree. All those planets were within a degree of being exact. Oh my God. Has an orbital period of 62.5 years, or slightly longer than Chiron's. Like Chiron, her orbit also links Saturn and Uranus. But unlike Chiron, her orbit does not intersect Saturn's. She may therefore be associated with fully and conceptualizing that which is beyond the natural world in mythology. Chariklo was a frequent companion of Athena, the iconic proponent of feminine wisdom, and the mother of Tiresias. I don't know, it's a weird name. The blind seer immortalized in verse with no Himeric cycle, the astrological archetype of Chariklo seems to represent individuals who are able to see the unknown more readily. She is prominent in the charts of inventors and science fiction authors. For example, as documented by astrologer Zane Stein, she represents turning toward the mystical and forging an opening in the numinous unknown. When Chariklo is found on the natal chart, may represent a place that wisdom transcends the boundaries of the natural world, a place where you must close your eyes to see. The 10th house symbolizes public life, authority, career issues, also represents the mother or perhaps the opposite sex parent. As standing opposite the 4th house, the 10th house represents how the foundation of the personality is made manifest in the concrete in the world. The birth chart is often divided in 4 7-year periods. Wow. Eris and Eris, which is war. That's double war. Like, that's some war. That's like war on war on war. I don't know. This is the first Eris in the 9th house. And this is the first trans-Pluto planet to be named, and was termed a dwarf planet, along with famously Pluto. Eris was discovered in 2005 from plates going back to 2003, and was originally nicknamed Xena, in the way of the popular myth, replacing ancient. Eris is the only planet-type object that was temporarily named for a television drama heroine. Temporarily named after a television drama heroine. The official designation dates from the fall of 2006 and taps once again in the pantheon of Olympian figures described as the Greeks and the Romans. This planet, well beyond Pluto, has an orbital period of 556 years and increases the size of the solar system to double the original Demeter, so far as she can be determined at this time. Eris represents the first of a series of astronomical objects to be named in the 21st century, paralleling the discovery of Pluto in the 20th, Neptune in the 19th, and Uranus in the 18th. The mythological Eris, goddess of strife and discord, was the sister of Mars, god of war, and willingly accompanied him into battle. She was also the cause of the Trojan War. Jealous of being left out of the wedding, she threw a golden apple of discord into the gathering. When the dust was settled, Paris had abducted Helen, and the war was on. It is too early to make a definite statement regarding all the meanings of this new planetary archetype, but some preliminary indications are as follows. Among the astrological meaning that can be attributed to Eris is one who struggles against injustice and oppression. She has her warlike, even bloodthirsty side, and the higher manifestation of defending the weak and standing up for oneself. Her placement and aspects of other planets correlate to the archetype of the underdog warrior, speaking truth to power, and with also a willingness to resort to violence if necessary. Many manifestations of the resort to violence to the archetype exist in the present culture, and the discovery period is also coincident with the onset of the Iraq War. The archetype represents the dire motif of the struggle for survival and is inherent in the natural world and in humankind also, which can represent once again, as with Pluto and Chiron, the darker side of our common humanity, and that must be acknowledged and and faced in our time. Where she's located in our chart is where we have the capability to make a powerful and perhaps ruthless stand for yourself in the battle against all odds. The ninth house represents intuition and the study of religion, philosophy, and higher learning. Legal matters. Wow. Okay, so it's already going to take long enough for my video to upload. I tried to get one to upload yesterday, but it wouldn't. So I'm going to read the other ones. There are some very other interesting ones. But, you know, I just think it's amazingly interesting. I think that everybody should see their natal chart, read it, learn about yourself, and, you know, grow. Because really seeing mine helped me accept it and grow. But thank you guys for watching, and please like and subscribe if you're interested. Thanks.